Hi, my name is Kacee Gluntz, and this is the video portion of my application for the Davidson Fellowship Scholarship. My submission is a portfolio full of poetry, short stories, and nonfiction that I've written throughout my high school career. I submitted this portfolio for a couple of reasons. One was my mom was kind of looking through all the scholarships that I could apply to, and she kind of came across this one, and we were looking at all the different things you could submit, science and math, and she was like, you know what, you're such a great writer. My mom has always believed in my writing abilities, and she was like, you know, you have to do this. It would be so great to get your writing out into the world, and I really have been looking for ways to get my writing out into the world because I have always loved to write. And secondly, I really wanted a chance to organize my writing. My writing was kind of all over the place in different notebooks and computer files, and sometimes just on like a napkin in my purse. I found like 3 poems there, so that was fun. The first part of my nonfiction submission was a research paper about medical marijuana. And I wrote it actually in my biology class, which was really cool for me because it kind of made me realize how my passion for biology and my passion for writing could go hand in hand. I had an amazing year of AP biology with a really great teacher, and he gave me this passion to go into medicine and go into research with medicine, and doing this paper really just like helped me realize that, you know, writing has such a large impact in the medical world, in the research field, and I could really use that in my life. The next part of my nonfiction was about technology and teenagers, because technology is a big part of our world today. Teenagers are constantly in their phones, including me, guilty as charged, but it's kind of an issue, you know? I remember my dad had this friend of mine who was working for him. He's a real estate appraiser, and she was just like entering data and taking calls for him. Well, she was supposed to be taking calls, but she like physically could not talk on the phone. And it just seemed kind of ridiculous to my parents, but I could kind of understand it. I have some trouble talking on the phone. It's not my favorite thing to do. And I think that it's kind of a plague of my generation. Not being able to hold conversations with people because we're constantly behind a screen and texting people. And it's causing people to just have a lack of depth in their view of society. And I think that it's really important. My short story application had mostly submissions from this writing competition that I used to be a part of called Power of the Pen. Power of the Pen was something that was so cool for me. It was a competition, and I actually made it to states one year, which I was really proud of. I was in the top 50 in the state. And the way it worked is you would go into a room with other writers, and you would be given 40 minutes to write a short story with a prompt. And you would do 3 or 4 rounds, and the judges would grade your story, and you would get this feedback on your story. And I would always get amazing feedback, and I was really able to use it to improve the stories, and I feel it creates some real masterpieces. As far as my poetry submission goes, that's obviously the largest part of my submission, and it shows because that's a huge part of my life. I have gotten through so much with poetry, some of the sad times, some of the happy times. You know, if I was ever feeling lonely or depressed, I could just write it all down on paper, and it almost like wouldn't feel as strongly anymore. So it was my outlet, and also when something good would happen, I could write it down and capture that feeling that I was feeling, and sometimes share it with the people that I was close to. And also, poetry was big in my life because music has always been big in my life. I am a guitar player and a singer, and I write songs, which I feel like songs and poems are the same thing. As far as my interest in the project goes, at first I was not very interested in the project, I have to be honest. It just seemed like a lot of work putting this whole portfolio together. But I remember sitting there in my lifeguard chair. I'm a lifeguard, so I sit for hours on end and just think about the world. And I was like, this writing that I do could really impact the world. You know, I could use it to tell not only my stories, but the people's stories that are in my life and are important to me. And I feel like everyone has a story to tell. And I think that this is such a great start for me. And it really just like motivated me to get into this project, because writing is a big part of all aspects of life, I feel like. I feel like the most intelligent people are readers and writers. How my portfolio fits into the context of literature. Some of my favorite authors include Robert Frost, Shel Silverstein, Edgar Allan Poe, Rick Riordan, Tim O'Brien, and E.E. Cummings. And something that all of these authors have in common is they've found a way somehow to appeal to the younger generation while also being very intelligent and critically acclaimed writers, which I think is a feat, because I think in the literature world it gets all caught up in like the deeper meaning of the work and it being this whole big thing. And I feel like a lot of times younger people are kind of like pushed away from that, and it makes literature and reading and writing seem unappealing to them. But I remember reading The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien my junior year of high school, and everyone loved that book because he just like spoke to everyone. He just had this incredible voice that you could see exactly what he was trying to say and exactly what he was feeling, and it was incredible. And like Rick Riordan, he took something as stuffy as Greek mythology and turned it into something that people with ADHD and dyslexia can enjoy, because it takes their differences and it makes them special. And it also, you can learn so much about history and about mythology and all these different parts of life, and it just was really cool to me how he was able to do that. And I would really love to be able to do that with my writing and take the works that I have done and hopefully make it interesting to people who are my age and get them into writing and reading and just being interested in the art that literature can be. I feel like the whole point of those authors and their works is that it's individual, and that's what I want my work to be. And I feel like my work is truly about, it expresses the things about me and as an individual. And I think that it could be an art, my works, because of how much they express my individuality. And I think that that's one of the most important parts of literature, is the art of it and how much people purely enjoy reading it. As far as applications go, I feel like my submission has many applications. The non-fictional works can be used for persuasion or for information, and I already talked about how I want to do research with biology. My poetry could be turned into music, or it can just be used to provoke thought and feeling in others. I also just want to touch people's hearts. I feel like that's one of the most important part of poetry, is to really just like hit someone in their core. And my fictional works are entertaining. I think that that is the biggest part of fiction, is to entertain people. And I know that's not really a deep application, but it's the application that I think is important towards literature. So, thank you for considering me for this scholarship. I hope you enjoyed this video.